Should you start Kodai Senga in a two-start week? Find out next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. Today is Friday, May 12th. I am Frank Sanford, joined by Scott White, and let's get into our Week 8 preview. Here's what the schedule looks like. 8 teams have 7 games next week. The Orioles, Angels, Dodgers, Mets, Yankees, Cardinals, Blue Jays, and Nationals. 20 teams have 6 games, and 2 unlucky teams have 5 games next week. The Pirates and the Tigers. Starters sit these fringe two-star pitchers, Scott, and we'll begin with Hunter Greene, who is at the Rockies and home against the Yankees.
It's a little dangerous, those matchups, especially since it's in Colorado, the first one. And, he struggles with walks some too. So I could see if you're just super invested in preserving your ERA and WHIP in a roto league, maybe you sit him. But I think most people are going to want to start him. Obviously, there's a chance for a lot of strikeouts, regardless of who he's facing.
Kodai Senga had another rough outing on Thursday against the Reds. He only walked 1, but the WHIP is up over 1.5 on the season, Scott. He is home against Tampa Bay and home against the Guardians.
Yeah, opposite ends of the spectrum there because the Guardians have been terrible on offense recently. Ray's great, of course. I lean yes on Senga as well. Again, if you're mostly looking to protect a WHIP, maybe not. But probably going to give you a lot of strikeouts in a two-start week.
Lance Lynn has struggled mightily this season. He's going up against the Guardians and the Royals.
He sure has. In fact, I believe he has the worst ERA among qualifiers.
Oof.
I do think he's going to get better. I do think it's a situation where you need to hold on to him as opposed to dropping him. Swinging strike rate looks great, and it took him a while to get going last year too. As for whether or not you start him this week, really favorable matchups is worth pointing out. So I think you could justify it in a points league specifically where the risk factor of a bad start isn't as high. But certainly not a must and not something I do in a roto league.
I can confirm Lance Lynn and his 7.51 ERA lead all qualified starting pitchers. Alec Mann, same conversation there. He's going up against the Yankees and the Orioles.
Yeah, those matchups are a lot worse, but it is a similar situation where I think you need to hold on to the guy. Do you want to start him right now? Maybe you could do it in a points league if you're really just looking to maximize volume, but preferably you'd sit him.
And lastly, Grayson Rodriguez up against the Angels and at the Blue Jays.
Yeah, that's a points league only scenario as well.
All right, some two-star pitchers, Scott, to add and stream for next week. Who you got?
I got Josiah Gray at the Marlins against the Tigers. Love those matchups. Enjoy Josiah Gray this week. I also have Seth Lugo. Bipolar matchups here against the Royals and against the Red Sox. And yeah, I mean, the Royals are normally a good matchup, but even they've been hitting well of late. Still, I think Seth Lugo's been pretty stable this year, and I think in a way that he could possibly sustain. So he's a fine choice. Dane Dunning, the ERA is great. He's continued to pitch well even after moving out of the bullpen into the rotation. Getting one bad matchup against the Braves, then one good matchup against the Rockies in Texas. I think he's worth using. Dane Dunning, only 20% rostered. And then Domingo Germán, for a guy who gives up hard contact at Toronto, at Cincinnati. That's not great. But I think he's good enough that if he has 2 starts, you're probably near automatic. You're going to slot him in.
I'll quickly run through your single start streamers so that we can get to hitters as well. John Gray up against the Rockies. Yuri Perez, that will be his second start against the Nationals. Bailey Ober at the Dodgers. Andrew Heaney up against the Rockies. Logan Allen at the White Sox. And Louis Varland at the Angels. The best hitter matchups for next week, the Reds, Diamondbacks, Padres, Phillies, and Astros. The worst hitter matchups, Pirates, Cubs, Royals, Braves, and Twins. With that being said, Scott, your favorite sleeper hitters for Week 8?
I got Jorge Soler at the top of the list here. The Marlins matchups are okay. And he had a big two-homer game recently. He's been hitting for lots of power this year. Hopefully is heating up. Harrison Bader has been hot, and the Yankees are one of just 7 teams playing 8 games this week, so I think he's fine. Anthony Rendon, Hasn't shown power yet, but he's been hitting better recently. Angels also among the teams with 7 games. You mentioned the Reds have the best matchups, including a series at Colorado. So from their lineup, I like Spencer Steer, who just homered Thursday. I like Jake Fraley, especially since there's only one lefty on the schedule. I like Nick Senzel and his triple eligibility. Also, I think Lourdes Gurriel is a good play. The Diamondbacks have the second best matchups. He tends not to play every game, so that's kind of frustrating. But he's been swinging the bat a lot better, and I think he's worth using this week.
And if anyone's wondering why Harrison Bader is off to this hot start, it might be because he's using a new bat, apparently an axe-handle bat that he picked up from his friend Pete Alonso. They went to college together. So there was an interesting story, and I don't know, hopefully Harrison Bader continues to hit for my New York Yankees. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Audacy app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.